Venezuela prepares for possible war with the United States. Civilians begin arming themselves. Tensions between Venezuela and the United States continue to rise as political rhetoric, military posturing, and strategic signaling intensify on both sides. Officials in Caracas warn that the nation is entering a critical phase in its confrontation with Washington, describing the situation as a direct challenge to Venezuela's sovereignty, independence, and national survival. Venezuelan defense officials have repeatedly pointed to U.S. sanctions as a form of economic warfare, arguing that financial restrictions have severely damaged the country's economy and weakened civilian infrastructure. According to the Venezuelan government, these measures are not merely punitive, but part of a broader strategy aimed at destabilizing the state and forcing political change. In this context, Caracas claims that military preparedness is no longer optional but essential. The Venezuelan armed forces have reportedly increased readiness levels, conducting large-scale military exercises across coastal regions, border zones, and strategic infrastructure sites. These drills include air defense operations, naval patrols in the Caribbean Sea, and rapid deployment scenarios designed to counter amphibious landings or aerial incursions. Military commanders stress that the exercises are defensive, yet clearly intended to send a warning signal to potential adversaries. A key element of Venezuela's strategy is the integration of civilian militias into the broader defense framework. The Bolivarian militia, which operates alongside the regular armed forces, is portrayed by the government as a symbol of national unity and resistance. Civilian volunteers, including workers, farmers, students, and public employees, participate in weapons training, civil defense planning, and local security coordination. Officials argue that this model makes the country more resilient against any form of external attack. From the government's perspective, the involvement of civilians is meant to complicate any potential military operation against Venezuela. The idea is that an invasion would not face only professional soldiers, but a population prepared to resist across urban centers, rural areas, and critical economic zones. This doctrine draws inspiration from historical examples of asymmetric warfare, where smaller or less technologically advanced forces rely on popular resistance to counter superior military power. Washington, however, continues to deny claims that it is preparing for war. U.S. officials emphasize that their focus remains on diplomatic pressure and international cooperation, rather than direct military action. The United States maintains that any military presence in the Caribbean and surrounding areas is routine and aimed at ensuring regional security, combating transnational crime, and supporting allies. Despite these assurances, the growing militarization of rhetoric on both sides has raised concerns among regional governments and international organizations. Neighboring countries fear that a miscalculation, accidental clash, or sudden political escalation could destabilize northern South America and disrupt vital shipping routes and energy markets. Experts also warn that modern conflicts do not always begin with formal declarations of war. Instead, they often emerge through cyber operations, intelligence activities, economic pressure, and proxy actions. In this sense, Venezuela and the United States may already be engaged in a broader hybrid confrontation, even in the absence of open fighting. For Venezuelan civilians, daily life unfolds under the shadow of uncertainty. Public campaigns promote national defense awareness, while state media highlights themes of resistance, sacrifice, and unity. At the same time, ongoing economic hardship and shortages make prolonged tension a heavy burden for ordinary families. Many citizens express hope that diplomacy will prevail, even as they prepare for worst-case scenarios. As the standoff continues, international calls for dialogue grow louder. Global powers and regional blocs urge restraint, warning that any armed conflict would have far-reaching humanitarian and geopolitical consequences. While a direct war remains unlikely in the immediate future, the persistent escalation underscores how fragile peace can be when geopolitical rivalry, ideology, and strategic interests collide. As tensions persist, analysts note that Venezuela's military posture is closely tied to its broader strategic partnerships. Caracas has strengthened defense cooperation with countries such as Russia, China, and Iran, a move that Washington closely monitors. These relationships include military training exchanges, arms procurement, and technological cooperation, which Venezuelan officials claim are necessary to balance U.S. influence in the Western Hemisphere. Russian-made air defense systems, fighter aircraft, and radar networks are frequently highlighted by Venezuelan media as proof that the country is capable of defending its airspace. Naval cooperation and joint exercises with foreign partners are also portrayed as a signal that Venezuela is not isolated, despite years of diplomatic pressure. From Caracas' point of view, these alliances serve as both a deterrent and a political message. Any aggression against Venezuela could have broader international implications. The United States, however, views such cooperation with concern. American security officials argue that the presence of rival powers in the Caribbean region could threaten regional stability and U.S. national security interests. While stopping short of direct threats, Washington continues to emphasize that it will closely observe any military buildup that could alter the balance of power near U.S. territory. Beyond conventional military considerations, cyber warfare and information operations are becoming an increasingly important part of the confrontation. Both sides accuse each other of spreading disinformation, manipulating media narratives, and conducting cyber activities aimed at undermining political stability. Experts warn that in a highly polarized environment, information warfare can escalate tensions rapidly, even without a single shot being fired. Economically, the stakes remain extremely high. Venezuela holds some of the world's largest proven oil reserves, making the country strategically important far beyond its borders. Any armed conflict or major instability could disrupt global energy markets, especially at a time when supply chains remain fragile. This factor alone, analysts argue, makes a full-scale war unlikely, but not impossible if political calculations shift dramatically. Within Venezuela, the government continues to frame the situation as a historic struggle against foreign domination. Official speeches often reference past interventions in Latin America, warning that history could repeat itself if the nation lowers its guard. Military parades, public drills, and televised training sessions reinforce the image of a society mobilized for defense, blending nationalism with revolutionary ideology. At the same time, human rights organizations express concern over the militarization of civilian life. They warn that widespread civilian armament, even under state control, carries long-term risks, including internal instability and potential misuse of force. Critics argue that true national security should prioritize economic recovery, political dialogue, and social stability rather than prolonged military readiness. Regional governments find themselves in a delicate position. Many Latin American countries seek to avoid choosing sides, instead advocating for peaceful dialogue and non-intervention. Diplomatic channels remain active behind the scenes, as mediators attempt to reduce tensions and prevent further escalation. Despite the strong rhetoric, most experts agree that both Caracas and Washington are carefully calculating their moves. Neither side appears eager for a direct military confrontation, fully aware that such a conflict would be costly, unpredictable, and politically damaging. However, the continued cycle of threats, counter-threats, and military signaling keeps the situation volatile. In this environment, the risk lies not only in deliberate action, but in misunderstanding and miscalculation. A naval incident, an airspace violation, or an unexpected political shock could rapidly change the dynamics. As history has shown, prolonged standoffs often test the limits of restraint. For now, Venezuela remains on high alert, projecting readiness and resilience, while the United States maintains pressure through diplomatic and economic means. The world watches closely, aware that the line between deterrence and confrontation can be thin, and that once crossed, the consequences could extend far beyond the borders of any single nation. As the standoff between Venezuela and the United States continues, the world remains on alert. What is unfolding is not just a clash of political narratives or military posturing, but a high-stakes test of restraint, diplomacy, and global stability. While both sides insist they seek deterrence rather than war, history has shown that prolonged tensions can quickly spiral beyond control. For now, weapons remain silent, but the signals are loud. Military drills, political warnings, and civilian mobilization reflect a nation preparing for the worst while hoping for the best. Whether this confrontation ends at the negotiating table or escalates into something far more dangerous will depend on the decisions made in the days ahead. One thing is certain: the consequences of miscalculation would not be confined to Venezuela or the United States alone, but felt across the region and the world.